What is a livable wage in 2026? Now I'm going to run these numbers for the average person in the country if you live in the top.
Hello everyone, welcome back to The Social View. In today's video, people share their thoughts on what they consider a livable wage in 2026 and explain the reasoning behind their answers. They discuss housing costs, food prices, transportation, healthcare, savings, and the financial realities they believe should be covered in order to live comfortably and independently. This conversation explores the rising cost of living, personal finance, economic expectations, and how different people define financial stability in today's economy, offering honest insight into what people believe it takes to get by and build a secure future in 2026.
Living in the US, a $40,000 salary is not a livable wage. It's living paycheck to paycheck. Honestly, if it were up to me, if you make less than $50,000 a year, you should be able to qualify for food stamps. I used to make $40,000 a year, and I can say firsthand that it is not a livable wage, even as someone who does not have kids. I had a comment recently on one of my videos from someone who lived in the UK that said that $40,000 in the UK is actually a pretty comfortable wage. Here it is not. And I want to break it down to show people exactly why it is not a livable wage. But first, let's talk about one of the probably biggest killers for why people are struggling to get by, and that's the cost of rent. You know, your rent is probably the highest bill that you have. And the cost of renting anywhere or housing in general just keeps going up while wages don't go up. When I was a freshman in high school, right after my parents got divorced and my mom and I moved, we moved into a 2-bedroom apartment. And rent for this 2-bedroom apartment was about $900 a month, and this was 12 years ago. Keep in mind, this was not a sketchy apartment at all. It was brand new construction in a good school district. It wasn't anything fancy, but nowadays, it's impossible to find even a 1-bedroom apartment or studio for $900 a month. And also keep in mind, if you're making $40,000 a year, most apartments, to get approved for them, you have to make 3 times the rent. So if you're making $40,000 a year, that means the most that you would be able to qualify for to rent is about $1,100 a month. And in some cities, you would be lucky to be able to find that. I looked up the cost of an average apartment in the US, and it's about $1,700 a month. But let's break it down and use a hypothetical example to illustrate why $40,000 a year in the US is not a livable wage. You know, for people that live in other countries, and also for the boomer generation that cannot grasp the concept that the cost of living has been just going up exponentially while wages have not. So let's just say that you are someone who's making $40,000 a year and you get paid bi-weekly. When I was making $40,000 a year, that came out to bi-weekly pay of about $1,200 every 2 weeks. So for the sake of this example, we will use that figure. If you average that by month, that's going to be $2,600 a month. Let's say you did manage to find a 1-bedroom apartment for $1,100 a month. So once you pay your rent, you're left with $1,500. Now, usually when you live in an apartment, they also tack on fees and things like that in addition to your rent, like trash fees and whatnot. So let's say with your apartment, it's an additional $100. So that leaves you with $1,400. Then let's say you spend about $100 a month on utilities for the apartment, like electricity, gas, whatever. Let's say that's about $100. So that leaves you with $1,300. Am I doing math in my head correctly? Let's say you have a student loan payment because you were told to go to college, because if you go to college, it'll be a good investment. You'll get into a job that will pay you enough money to live comfortably. So let's say you're paying $200 a month on your student loan. So that leaves you with $1,100. Then you have a car to get you to and from your job. Let's say you have to work in office 5 days a week at your job, so you have to commute. So you need a reliable car to get you to work. Let's say you are paying $300 for your car payment, so that leaves you with $800. Let's say for car insurance, you pay about $200 a month, so that leaves you with $600. Now let's say you spend about $200 a month on gas and maintenance for your car so that, your car will keep working so that you can get to your job. So that leaves you with $400. And let's say you spend about $400 a month on groceries. So that basically leaves you with nothing in your bank account. And I'm sure that I forgot some things. But the point is, after everything that I just mentioned, which keep in mind, these are all essential like things that people have to pay for. You know, I didn't mention coffee. I didn't mention, you know, a gym membership or a Netflix subscription or eating out. Like, let's just say you are someone that you literally don't do anything other than go to work. Like, you just come home and sit in your apartment and stare at the wall, and you eat at home every single day. Like, you don't remember the last time you set foot in a restaurant. That leaves you with $0 in your bank account. That leaves you with nothing to save for emergencies, nothing to save for retirement. Let's talk about what happens if an emergency does come up and you don't have emergency savings. Well, you're probably going to end up putting that emergency onto a credit card. People are going to say you're not good at budgeting, you're living above your means. Well, what is it there to take out of your budget when everything that I just mentioned is things that you have to pay for? You have to have a place to live, you have to have a car, you know, you have to insure your car, you have to maintain your car so it keeps working, you have to have food to eat. Like, there's really nothing in there that you can cut out of your budget, and you still end up with nothing in your bank account. So, you know, you're probably going to end up having to use credit cards, or you're probably going to have to pay overdraft fees to your bank. People might say go get a second job, and honestly, nobody should have to do that. Nobody should have to work more than one job to make ends meet. One full-time job should be enough to get by, but it's not. You shouldn't have to put in extra time and extra work just for basic needs. And like I said, this person, this example, they're living paycheck to paycheck with nothing left over after they've paid their essential bills. There's nothing for them to do anything fun, you know, nothing to go travel, nothing to go out with friends. And if you're just going to live this life where all you do is go to work and then come home and you can't even do anything that you enjoy, that you're eventually going to get depressed, you know? So no, it is not possible in the US to live comfortably on $40,000 a year. And the problem is not people don't know how to budget.
What are your thoughts on this video? Let me know in the comments down below.
Okay, I don't care if I come off as entitled by saying this, but I didn't go to school for 4 years, work while I was in school, go get my master's as soon as I completed my bachelor's, to get a job offer of 50 or 60K. I'm so sorry. If you are working a job that pays you that much, I love that for you, but I don't even know you, and I think you are being severely underpaid. And I don't feel bad for saying this, because if a man was demanding that he gets paid fairly, y'all would be cheering instead of booing. Whenever I tell anyone that I don't want to accept a job offer under 75K in this economy, straight out of my master's, they're like, well, good luck with that. Why is it so scandalous to ask for more money whenever we're living in the economy we're living in? I haven't done all this work just to scrape by, honey. I want to live. Okay?
What are your thoughts on this video? Let me know in the comments down below.
There are far too many people on the internet saying that $50,000 is not enough to live on. $80,000, even $150,000 a year is not enough to get by. How about $40,000? $20 an hour is all it takes to have a livable situation under the exact demands that I have heard from people saying that even $28 an hour is not enough to survive on. Keep in mind, everything I am about to show you is based off the pretense that you make $20 an hour and we've already deducted your taxes except state taxes, because this is based on an area in Dallas that has 8.5 million people living in it. So you can't even say that it's some podunk town. First things first is you're gonna need somewhere to live. $749 a month. This is basic lifestyle. You don't get to live in luxury with granite countertops. You get a roof over your head, electricity, running water, and you get to have air conditioning and heat. And this income is based off of a one single income, one person household. So again, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom. Y'all say you need a phone plan. This right here, $55 a month through Verizon, which is a very good carrier. You can get an Apple iPhone 16 Plus, not some flip phone. You say food is so expensive you can't afford to eat. Shop at Aldi. The same bag that's at Walmart for $6 is $1.99 at Aldi. Here's some chicken. You think that almost 3 pounds of chicken for $5 can't get you a few meals? How much are you eating? I'm 6'4" and over 230 pounds, and I don't eat that much. Do you like sandwiches? Here is literally what I buy to put on my sandwiches that keeps me fed. This is a fork ton of meat. Well, we deserve transportation. Here's a Toyota Camry 2016, $14,000, $277 a month, but I did include insurance, so we're gonna say $377 a month. And it only has 31,000 miles, so you can't say it's like a 250,000 mile car that won't run. A Camry is reliable. That thing is not gonna break down on you in the next 10 years. Yeah, but you forgot to include health insurance. No, I didn't. Healthcare.gov. This is what I would say is someone who would be making about this type of money at 21 years old, $252 a month, you're fully covered. Yeah, but we need Wi-Fi, which no, you don't. But I thought I would include it in this idea to prove a point. $50 a month. Keep in mind, the food budget that I set aside for this is $400 a month because you are buying from Aldi or a similar store and not Kroger, not Walmart, not Target. I also made sure to set aside $200 a month for gas for your car. Another $300 a month for the utilities for that apartment. Yeah, but what about a pension or a 401k in retirement? Another $300 a month has already been set aside for retirement. And if there's other things I missed, I just added an additional $100 a month to that for miscellaneous. At $20 an hour, after taxes minus state income tax, you bring home $2,950. Everything that I provided to you in this budget comes out to a total of $2,793. This makes sure that whenever you say, well, I shouldn't just be surviving, I should also be able to buy things I want. This leaves an additional $157 a month for things that you want. And it doesn't mean you're going to get it that month. You may have to save up 2 or 3 months, but you can still get it. So now there is officially no argument against me saying you are blowing your money and you can live off of much less than you think. Because you chose not to provide the receipts. I went and got them.
I made a video saying that if you can't live off a 60 to 80K yearly salary as a single person, you're probably living above your means. I got a lot of comments like this saying, oh, but I live in California, I live in New York, rent's too high. Obvious fucking Lee, if you're in one of the most expensive places to live in the US, shit is gonna cost more, but y'all also get paid more for living there. Your jobs have higher salary caps compared to the average place in the US. A job paying me $80K here in Central Florida will pay me $110 in New York for the exact same job. So yeah, it's not as much money because you're living in a higher cost of living place. I didn't think I'd have to fucking specify this. This is common sense. But for the average person in the US in an average place, 60, 80K for one person should be more than enough. And if it's not enough for you, you have a budgeting or spending problem. More than likely, you're spending too much on rent, going out, your car note's too high, things like that. You should be able to live off a 60 to 80K salary in most places.
$25 an hour isn't a living wage in 2026. When a few groceries from the store cost $70, when people are paying anywhere from $80 to $200 a week for gas, when the median rent prices are anywhere from $1,500 to $1,700 a month, it's no longer obtainable. It literally feels like working anymore is a scam, and you're selling all of your time for nothing. You're flushing your entire life down the toilet, and you're not even getting anything out of it anymore. A few short years ago, people were able to comfortably get by on $25 an hour. Now it's completely out of the water. People are out here making the most money that they've ever made in their lives, yet they're the brokest they've ever been. It's not bad money management, it's an economy that feels impossible. How much longer do we have until we rise up against this corrupt administration, tell them that we're not doing this anymore, because it's not working out for any of us, and I personally believe that us as human beings deserve a better quality of life. And until we can afford healthy food, until we can afford housing, insurance, healthcare, life necessities, there literally is no point in working at all.
What are your thoughts on this video? Let me know in the comments down below.
The official 2026 USA income classes were announced.
Oh, were they?
I want you to guess how much money these fall into.
Okay, so we're going brackets.
So what is the poverty line? From $0 to what?
I think it goes up to like 25,000.
So this is making per year.
Yes, $25,000. I feel pretty good. Maybe a little higher.
It's a little less than that. This is dead poverty.
Okay.
So this is $0 to about $16,000 per year. You are in poverty.
Crazy.
What about near poverty?
That one probably goes up to a range around like $35,000.
Pretty good. So it's $16,000 to around $32,000 per year.
I can't imagine if you had a kid and had a support on that salary, especially living anywhere remotely near New Jersey, New York. I don't think it's possible.
What about lower income?
Lower income, I would say goes up to like 45,000. So 32 to 45.
Okay, it's 32 to 56 about.
Okay, that's considered low income?
That's considered low income.
Got it.
What about lower middle class?
Lower middle
So
class.
it's 56K to what?
I'll say goes up to 75,000.
Okay, lower middle class goes from 56,000
82,000
to about $84,000.
I knew it.
Which is way higher than I thought. If you made 85K, like that's pretty good salary, I thought.
I think the times have changed too.
What about middle class?
$84,000 to probably 100K.
This one's crazy.
Let's lock it in.
Apparently you're in the middle class if you make from 84 to $125,000.
6 figures was like a really big deal.
What about upper middle class? So 125 to what?
I think this range is big. 200,000.
No, it's $167,000 per year. And then last one, what about upper income?
Upper income, I'm going to say $200,000.
So that's just $167,000 plus.
So there's no like top 1%ers.
No, that's just upper income. That's more than anyone else in the country.
I'm Californian, and I just want to run some numbers real quick so you guys can kind of get an idea. Because I forget that not everybody lives out here. According to the ca.gov website, minimum wage in California is $16.90 an hour. Now, as a general, we know that when you go to rent an apartment, you need to be making 3 times the amount of rent. That's typically the requirement. The rent requirement is 3 times the amount. Meaning, if I'm making minimum wage, working 40 hours a week, that should be 3 times the amount that my rent costs. Okay, so this 676 number comes from 1690 times 40 because that is 40 hours a week times minimum wage. And then we multiplied that times 4 because that's what you would be making weekly, theoretically, 4 weeks in a month. So this is how we got this number, $2,704 roughly of income a month. Just to make it even, we're just going to say $2,700 even. So minimum wage in California, full-time, you should be making $2,700. A 1-bedroom apartment out here will run you about $2,500 a month for rent. And if you can barely make rent with your monthly income, that leaves no room for bills and food and gas and necessities. You know what I mean? Like toiletries and stuff like that. And so most people in our age group are solving this problem, especially Californians, by having roommates. The majority of people I know have 2 to 4 roommates. And roommates is fine, you know what I mean? But like you're still paying a significant amount of your income no matter the roommate situation, because more rooms, it's gonna cost more. It's gonna cost more. A 2-bedroom apartment is around $5,000. It's ridiculous. The top listings are for a $3,900 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom a month and a $2,895 rent 1-bedroom apartment. Moving on from the fact that rent is quite literally all you can afford, let's talk groceries. Because what I used to think was a reasonable grocery budget for a, person as an individual or as a household has ridiculously changed. For instance, milk is like $5 to $6 a gallon. Maybe sometimes you can find it for like $3 a gallon. You can, it depends on the store. But for the most part, like you go into a store, it's about like $5 a gallon. Like rotisserie chickens used to be like $5. And within the last 5 years, they have gone up and now it's like $20 for a rotisserie grab and go chicken. That's ridiculous. Sure, I have a Costco membership. I know how to shop grocery budget. But if we're talking non-budgeting, I feel like the average, cost of a grocery run is going to be like $200 to $300 for 2 weeks worth of groceries. I feel like that's actually reasonable. I'm sure I could stretch that as well. You know what I mean? You absolutely have to stretch things. But a comfortable grocery budget would be at least $800 a month. And I'm only going to say that because that's what EBT gives you when you have a kid. Well, at least that's what my EBT gave me. Sorry. That's what the state deems a reasonable amount of grocery money a month. Okay? So I don't know. That's where I pulled that number from. That's what they gave me. Let's pretend I can pull $800 for groceries out of my ass from the $200 spare dollars I had from rent money, which again is only rent money. I haven't even, we're saying fuck electricity and gas and water. And I mean, most of us live in apartments, so we don't have to pay for trash the majority of the time, but trash services, depending on where you live. You know what I mean? Those are all bills. All of that costs money. Also, the cost of gas, ridiculous. Sorry for the way this is horrendously cropped. I didn't want the addresses on here. But look at these gas prices. This is near me. $5.60, $5.40. So let's go $5.50. Majority of us have 12-gallon tanks, okay? I mean, at least that's how much my little car takes. Again, this is experience-based. Right now, that means it's about $60 to $70 for a full tank. Yeah. What do you mean it costs 3.5 to 4 hours of my time to fill my gas tank? So your solution is to either work 2 jobs, which is what the majority of people I know do. Suffer. Again, we all do. Genuinely, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? $70 for a full gas tank? Again, I work a part-time job. So my shifts are not full-time shifts. Even if I work 40 hours a week, that would be hard. I've worked 4-hour shifts, a whole work day for a gas tank. 1 tank of gas. That's a whole day of my life. That's ridiculous. And it genuinely is ridiculous. And I don't care that people are so used to it that they're like, no. Because literally, when did we get so adjusted to this? Why can I not go to a fast food restaurant and get a burger, fries, and a drink for $5? Why do I have to pay roughly $20 for any sort of food anywhere I go? Right? And that's standard size, because it's genuinely $15 to $30 for an individual person going out to eat, unless you know how to, do it better. But again, this is average. If you just want to go out and get a combo at a restaurant and not scour the dollar menu, that's roughly how much it costs out here. It shouldn't cost an hour of labor for 1 meal, because you need, theoretically, 21 meals a week? So why does it cost an hour of labor for 1 meal if I have to eat 21 times a week, or if I'm supposed to eat 21 times a week? You know what I mean? That's 21 hours of my life to earn enough money to eat food. That's half of a work week just to cover the cost of eating. Now again, that's not how it works precisely, because, grocery shopping, and you're not going out to eat and spending $20. That's why you don't go out to eat every single meal, because look at how ineffectively that would cost. Why is genuinely everything $20? Why is everything an hour of my time? Because if I only have a spare $100 to $200, which I don't. If I even had a spare $100 to $200, that's only a spare handful of things you can do. And again, this is such a vague numbers conversation. And even vaguely, do you see how sheerly overwhelming it is? If I actually sat here and calculated it, they would come shoot me for realizing how fucked we are, okay? This is actually a ridiculous economy. And this is why they have programs, and this is why there are resources in communities for housing assistance and food assistance. This is why there are food banks. This is why there are, like, there's the WIC offices for moms and children, and this is why there's EBT and government programs and stuff like that. But all of these programs are exhausted of resources because of how unbalanced it is. You know what I mean? Genuinely, $30,000 a year is not a livable minimum wage. $30,000 a year is not enough to pay rent in California. Again, if the cost of rent itself is so high everywhere that you can't pay anything else, how are you supposed to do anything? It's hard. Again, this is just a general conversation, guys. I understand. I don't need your help with programs or anything like that. My bills are paid. I'm just still financially exhausted. You know what I mean? It's hard. It's hard. If we weren't spending billions of dollars bombing other countries, maybe it would be more livable in our own. But, you know, I think we should probably just not bomb them because that's murder. You know, I think before we care that we're bombing people because of our economy, we should care that we're bombing children. Thank you. Have a good day.
Have you ever wondered how much you make compared to the average person your age? Let's see. This is the median salary by age using the latest available data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics usual weekly earnings report. To better understand my audience and bring this data to life, please drop your age and salary in the comments. Starting off with those ages 65 plus, median salary of $62,036. For those ages 55 to 64, median salary of $68,744. For those ages 45 to 54, median salary of $71,604. For those ages 35 to 44, this is the highest on the list, median salary of $72,020, but significant drop for ages 25 to 34. If you haven't done so yet, please hit that follow button. Median salary of $59,800. And finally, ages 20 to 24, median salary of just $41,392.
Damn near every time I hear the minimum wage argument, people seem to always leave out the fact that minimum wage was designed so that one income earner could support 2 adults and children and own a house. Let me repeat that because I don't think you're getting it. One minimum wage income worker could support 2 adults and kids and own a fucking house. As always, death to imperialism and its agents, and all power to the people. This doesn't need any notes. It doesn't need any notes. That says... Fuck!
This is the average salary per age group in 2026. If you're new here, my name is Raul. I love talking about personal finance, investing, stocks, and crypto for beginners, so if that interests you, give me a follow. From 16 to 19, the median is $32,000. From 20 to 24, the average is $41,000. From 25 to 34, the average is $59,000. From ages 35 to 44, the average is $72,000. From ages 45 to 54, the average is $71,000. And lastly, the ages between 55 and 64, the average is $68,000. This data is from December 2025, and it's been fact-checked by Smart Asset.
At this point, I seriously think Gen Z is just screwed. In 2026, Gen Z just simply earns way less than it costs to survive. The average Gen Zer makes about $25K a year, which is around $21,000 a month, and spends basically all of it on bills or rent. Nearly half of Gen Z runs out of money before the end of the month ends, and that's not just budgeting, that's just survival at that point. And don't get me started on student loan debt, because the average Gen Zer also has about $30K of student loan debt on top of all of that. We are spending more on essentials than any other previous generation, and wages just keep going down, and the cost of living just keeps going up. You're not failing in life. The system is just completely fucked us over. Budgeting does help, don't get me wrong. I still use mine to budget and track all of my expenses, but the system is still failing us.
Livable wage. Livable. Are we really going to pretend like we don't know what that means? Because if so, have a seat and let's break it down. First, the English language livable means a wage enough to live your life in this country. No matter where you are, no matter what job you have, 40 hours a week of labor should be enough so that you can live. But let's get into the quants, the specifics. So this isn't just subjective, right? A lot of people are saying that like, oh, what one lifestyle might be different than another lifestyle. That's not what this is. This is an objective measure. In fact, MIT created a calculator back in 2003 that shows us what a livable wage means for different geographical locations, different family circumstances in the United States. So to start, here's the equation. And it's much simpler than it may seem. The way you do this is you take the entire average family budget, and we'll get into the specifics in that in a second. Then you add in taxes, payroll, all that good stuff. So now you have your numerator, the sum. Then you have to divide that by the number of working adults in the household. So if you have yourself and a partner, that would be divided by 2. Then you divide that by 2080, which is the number of hours a typical worker would work in a single year. That is done by multiplying 40 by 52, the number of weeks in the year. So now you have your equation. And the biggest point of misconception or confusion is, okay, well then how do you define what an average family budget is? Here's everything that's factored in. Food, childcare, healthcare, housing, transportation, civic engagement, internet, miscellaneous, and then of course our favorite, taxes. Now hold up. Before you say but wait, families need different things, so how can you say that? You have to remember this is the average taken for a geographical location. So what a family might need in Topeka, Kansas is vastly different than that of New York City. These are figures for New York County, New York. The first thing you may notice is New York City's minimum wage is $17 an hour, which is roughly $10 higher than the national minimum wage. The poverty wage is $7.67, so we're roughly about $10 higher than the poverty wage. But what then you'll notice is the livable wage is roughly $38 an hour. So there's still a $21 gap between what New York City mandates employers pay versus what people in New York City need to live a livable life. When you annualize that $38 an hour, meaning what would that total up to for an entire year, that is roughly $78,000 a year. And here's a sampling of a variety of career choices you could have in New York County and what those pay. And you'll notice a lot of the career choices pay far below the livable wage. And that takes us all the way back to the point I made in my first video when I claimed that companies should be paying livable wages. No one in this country should work 40 hours a week and not be able to provide for themselves and their family.